This is Dave, and I'm here with Ethan, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 222-inch.
On this episode, we interview Weird the Al Yankovic Story makeup department head, Kat Bardot.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Welcome, Ethan, and all of our lovely listeners to episode 222-inch.
Yes, which is, of course, our second episode to feature the same digit repeated 3 times. The first one being episode 111-inch, of course, our episode with the star of Netflix magic series Magic for Humans, Justin Willman.
Oh yeah, what a fun interview with Justin. I wonder how he's doing.
He's doing great, actually.
I'm glad to hear that, but how do you know he's doing great?
Well, I just saw him at the Egg in Albany on Friday.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Not really. I mean, he was performing. It was a ticketed event, Dave.
Oh, I mean because of, you know what, never mind. How was the show?
It was pretty stinking majestic. It was super funny. There was great magic, great volunteers, great crowd work. I highly recommend Justin Willman's show if he comes anywhere near you on tour.
Did he do the infamous mysterious floating orb trick that he taught Weird Al?
Well, not quite, but he did play a clip of a brand new show he has coming to Netflix called The Magic Prank Show. It drops on April 1st, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say he does something in the clip that was straight out of UHF.
Wow, sounds like a great show, and it sounds like you had a great time.
Oh, what do you say, Dave? I think it's just about time for what's happening in Weird Al-related news.
MeTV's original series, Collector's Call, is returning for Season 5 in April, and there's a very special and very weird episode airing on Sunday, April 21st.
We've been giddy with excitement for months helping keep this a secret, but we are thrilled to share that our very own actual close personal friend and past guest of the podcast, Kenneth Gwinnett, and his incredibly bodacious Weird Al collection are the subjects of this episode.
The show is hosted by Lisa Welchill from The Facts of Life and explores the private collections of the world's biggest collectors of pop culture memorabilia. And after exploring and appraising the collection, an expert offers the collector a once-in-a-lifetime trade for one of their prized possessions. Will they take the trade? That's the collector's call.
And get this, the expert for Kenneth's episode couldn't get any better, as it's none other than longtime archivist and drummer for Weird Al, John Bermuda Schwartz. But that's not all! As a special surprise for Kenneth, the episode also features a message from Weird Al himself, passing along a very special, very personal gift. Ooh.
Wow, won't Kenneth be surprised when he finally sees the episode? In an article from RemindMagazine.com announcing the episode, they show off a few items from Kenneth's tour laminate and pin collection, including a few pins created by our very own Ethan Ullman.
Set your DVRs now. Kenneth's episode is set to air April 21st at 6:30 p.m. on MeTV and will be streaming on MeTV and MeTV Plus on Philo TV and Ferndly TV.
Backers of Julian Villard's Kickstarter were treated this week to a full preview of his upcoming album, In the Middle of Something.
The album preview, of course, includes the song We Should Have an Affair, which world premiered on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 221-inch, and features both a cameo and accordion by Weird Al himself.
That song is so catchy, I've had it stuck in my head for a week. There's still time to back the album, so head on over to bit.ly/middle of something and make us proud.
Hey Dave, today we're celebrating a very special birthday.
Oh, Ethan, you shouldn't have. So tell me, did you get me a cake? And where are all the presents?
What? Your birthday is like 147 days away. What are you talking about?
Well, first off, rude. And Hey, isn't today the 40th anniversary of the release of Weird Al's platinum-selling, iconic, smash hit sophomore album, Weird Al Yankovic in 3D, which features the international sensation and Grammy Award-winning hit single Eat It, parody of Michael Jackson's Beat It?
Yeah. From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, happy anniversary and congratulations to Weird Al and his band on 40 years of Weird Al Yankovic in 3D.
And a pinch to grow another 2,000 inches. You know, assuming that Weird Al Yankovic in 3D has grown, on average, 50 inches per year.
We've got a few Weird Al appearances in media and beyond to catch up on. So first up, on Tuesday, February 13th, Weird Al was the answer during the category Famous Hair on episode 7 of the Fox game show, The Floor.
The contestant who received the question got it right immediately, but ultimately went home. In her exit interview, she said it must have been, quote, a bad hair day.
Last Thursday, February 22nd, there was yet another Weird Al mention in the New Yorker crossword puzzle.
The clue for 51 across was Yankovic and Pacino for 2. Ethan, would you like to take a guess?
ALS. Als.
Collector alert! Emmy Magazine issue 1 of 2024 features an excellent photograph of Weird Al posing on a big red couch with director Eric Appel and our co-star Daniel Radcliffe.
And for those whose collections span to the great Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West, not only can you currently listen to his music when flying with Hawaiian Airlines, he's also mentioned in the current issue of their in-flight magazine, Hana How.
This episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito Burrito, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito Burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito Burrito and Burrito Burrito your Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy vegan burgers. From Albany to Uranus, Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquare.com and wizardburger.com to order ahead.
And now it's time for What's Happening in Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast-related news. Patreon supporters last week were treated to an exclusive video of Weird Al performing at San Francisco Sketchfest.
Our intern Frank tells us there's still more to come, so be sure to head on over to patreon.com/2000inch and become a paid supporter. And now it's time for this episode's interview. All right, Ethan, take it away.
Dave and I are absolutely thrilled to welcome to the podcast. She is the makeup department head from Weird the Al Yankovic Story and has worked on numerous projects, including Reno 911, Drunk History, Better Call Saul. We are so thrilled to welcome to the podcast Kat Bardot. How's it going, Kat?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
We are so excited to chat with you. We love your work in Weird. And I also realized that you and I are from the same area in New York.
I still have my 518 area code.
Amazing.
I'll never get rid of it.
When did you move out to California?
I moved in 2005, and it was like right when I had just gotten a cell phone. Like I got a cell phone right before I moved to LA, like maybe a month before I moved. And because I got it in upstate New York, it came with a 518 area code. And now at this point, it's like everyone already has that number. Like I literally never go back to upstate, but it's too exhausting to change it at this point.
Oh, of course. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Everyone has cell phones. You don't have to really think about an area code. That's amazing. Well, I guess starting at the beginning, you went to school for makeup design?
No, actually, I went to SUNY New Paltz, which is a state school, originally as an art education major, and then I realized that I did not like high school students. They are not nice, and you also don't make any money as a public school teacher, so I was like, yeah, I guess I'll just be an art major. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. And then I moved out to LA with the goal of going back to school for hair and makeup, and it just never ended up happening. I had to get a job when I moved out here and work full time to pay my bills. And then I just sort of fell into doing makeup without having any real background in it. I've always been self-taught. I was one of those girls who always did everyone's makeup for prom and for Halloween. And I helped a lot with the photography department when I was in college doing makeup on photo shoots for my friend Ryan. who's now like a very big celebrity portrait photographer. And yeah, then I started doing theater out here and fell into hair and makeup through theater.
Wow.
So did you move out to LA to get closer to the entertainment industry, or was that for a different reason?
Yeah, that's exactly why. I like pretty much knew from a very young age that I wanted to work in film and television. Like my joke is that I'm basically the cable guy, but I'm not a psychopath. Like I truly was raised by the television. I just consumed TV at such a young age, and I was definitely watching things I shouldn't have been watching at such a young age. I became really into horror. I don't know, I was watching like Freddy Krueger probably in 4th grade, 5th grade maybe. Like, so I knew it was something I always wanted to be in, and I knew LA was the place to do it. I had never been to LA before I moved here. I just got on a plane and moved here because I knew the industry was here.
Wow. That's really gutsy. And it's incredible how your career has grown since then.
I feel very lucky. I think I like just got a lot of really lucky opportunities. You know, when I moved out here, my parents were like, oh, she'll be back in 6 months. And I've been out here for, oh my God, like, I'm getting close to 20 years out here now.
Wow. That's so cool. Now, anyone who follows you on Instagram, I'm sure has seen that you wrote a really great piece for the Artisan magazine where you talked about your time working on Weird the Al Yankovic Story and some of the specific products you used and a lot of really great details. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about was what I learned in that article is that you actually knew Eric Appel from before Weird the Al Yankovic Story.
Yeah, I mean, Eric grew up in upstate too, but we didn't know each other then. My first real makeup job, my first real paid makeup jobs were with Funny or Die in 2009. I think I had sent them an email. I maybe had done 2 real makeup jobs prior to emailing them and was like, hey, I'm a makeup artist. I love working in comedy. I would love to work with you guys, thinking I'm never going to get a response to this. In my mind, it was such a big company. And I got an email back half hour later from Mike Farah, who's still over there as head of production. And he was like, do you want to work tomorrow? I was like,
wow.
Yeah, okay. And I did this crazy shoot with the actor Vinnie Jones. I remember Seth Morris wrote it. I can't remember who directed that one. But literally doing that one day led to me working there for almost 3 years.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow.
Again, got really lucky. Just shot off a random email. And
so at what point at Funny or Die did you meet Eric Appel?
Eric was there basically. I think he definitely was there before me. We were in this really small office. So it's hard to remember now who actually had offices in that building because it was so tiny. He must have had an office in that building. It was right in Central Hollywood. I don't remember the first shoot. We had a handful of directors at Funny or Die, so you would just get assigned to different sketches depending on who was shooting that day. Mm-hmm. And so I did not do the original Weird Al trailer with Eric. There was another makeup artist working there at the time, Shauna O'Toole, and I believe she was the one who did that because there was really just 2 of us at the beginning of the Funny or Die days. But I did a bunch of other videos with Eric, and I just really got along with him and understood his sense of humor, and I love his wife as well, and we've just stayed in contact over the years and done multiple projects together since.
That's incredible.
It's really cool. And is that how then you ended up working on Weird the Al Yankovic Story through your connection with Eric?
Yeah, Eric and I both left Funny or Die around the same time. My first real department heading job was in 2011, and it was a show that he had directed called Dirty Work. And so we both kind of graduated from Funny or Die at that point. And we just always stayed in contact. And he had told me very early on, hey, remember that fake trailer I made? I'm writing into a movie. And I was like, awesome. I would definitely love to work on that. And then he called me, I think it was right before Thanksgiving in 2021. Yeah. It would have been 2021.
Okay.
Being oh, that movie's happening. You're going to do it with me, right? And I was like, hell yeah, of course I'm going to do it with you. I got hired on verbally from Eric before they even brought like the line producer on.
Wow.
I was like one of the very early people that knew I'd be working on it.
It sounds like a lot of the key members of the crew for Weird the Al Yankovic Story were handpicked. And I think that is part of the magic that happened on this film is everyone kind of already knew each other and were there for the same reasons. And I think that's just so cool.
I actually didn't know a ton of the people. I mean, our line producer that ended up getting hired was actually my line producer on Drunk History, Zach Haley. And so I know him very well. But the other departments, I think Eric must have worked with them in other facets, like maybe commercial or something. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
they were all quite new to me, and everybody just got along so great. It was just such an amazing fit. He really curated such a wonderful group of people.
Yeah, that's so awesome to hear. So you got signed on, around Thanksgiving 2021, and then a little over 2 months later, you actually start filming the movie. What was that pre-production like?
Very short, very rushed. So I had thought like a hair department had been booked already because I had suggested somebody in November, and then like in the beginning of January, I think I got a call being like, "Hey, who do you want for hair?" And I was like, "Wait, did you not book the person I suggested?" And she ended up being booked already.
Oh.
And so I gave them like I could only find like 2 other people that weren't already booked. And a lot of stuff happened with the hair department. They ended up actually being replaced after the first 2 days of shooting. So then I had to help to get another hair department up to speed. So that was while we were already shooting.
Oh, wow.
Which it would have been nicer to have the full-time hair department locked in so we could have done proper preparation leading up. But, the movie, it's a low-budget comedy movie. And so you don't get the kind of time you would get on like a big blockbuster film.
Right.
Where you do tons and tons of camera tests and they're, on the set with the kind of lighting you'd be shooting in. We did do camera tests. And the camera team and the DP did a fantastic job of helping my department really visualize what we were going to see on camera. We did have 1 day of tests. And then I had like some little meetings prior to the test day with Dan and with Evan to just like really get their looks dialed in. The day Dan landed in LA, I took him to a special effects lab to get life casted for his mustache cover prosthetic. So it was just like he literally got to LA and just like hit the ground running with prep. I think like maybe I got 10 paid days of prep, but I did probably like 20 or 25.
Wow.
Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be saying that. But I didn't like. I do that a lot as a department head on almost every show I work on because I do tend to work in low budget comedy because that's where I have so much fun.
Yeah.
Is that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep working like off the clock tonight, or I'm gonna work over the weekend, just because I care so much about what I'm putting on the screen that to me it's like, my time isn't as valuable as being happy with the finished product.
That's really cool. I mean, it's not sustainable maybe long term, but that's really cool, that you're willing to do stuff like that. I mean, just looking at your roster of things that you've worked on, including like Tim and Eric stuff and Birthday Boys and, you said Drunk History, like some of the really, in Reno 911, some of the really, greatest comedy things to come out of the last decade you've worked on.
Oh, thank you. I feel very, very lucky that people have given me the opportunities they've given me and tended to keep me around because they enjoy my work, and I think that I'm easy to get along with, so.
Well, before we get too much into what you actually did on the set, working with Daniel and Evan and all the other people you got to work with, can you just give us like a high-level overview of what it is that a makeup department head does?
So, as a makeup department head, you're in charge of not only designing the look of the film once you meet with your director and get a good idea of visually what they're trying to achieve. It's very much a collaborative partnership in that way. But on top of designing and then executing makeups, I'm running an entire department. So on that film, I had a key makeup artist. I had a full-time third She's almost full time. I think there was only 4 days she wasn't there. And then there were days where I needed to hire lots of day players, like the big pool party scene.
Right.
I don't even remember how many extra people I brought in that day. It was huge. It was a huge mornings. So I have to delegate responsibilities to each artist that I have working under me. So everybody knows in the morning when they come in which actor they're doing, what their character makeup look is. I give them all the supplies that they need. So, I'm doing shopping, I'm designing, I'm shopping for supplies, I'm making flow charts to make sure that the mornings run smoothly. So I'm teaming up with the AD department to make sure that we get everybody done on time. There's lots of paperwork. Like I always say, like doing actual makeup is maybe only like 15% of my job.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. Yeah, you do makeup in the morning, and then you just kind of maintain that makeup all day. And then you've got, if I'm doing my shopping, then I have to turn in all my receipts. So I'm like sitting on set trying to do my paperwork receipts and scheduling COVID tests for everybody who's coming into day play.
Wow. Now, I think the main look for the film that you had to, or the main character you had to work on, I have to assume to be Dan or Al.
Yeah, so Al only had, I think, like 3 shoot days. So I established his character the first day, but then scheduling-wise, we just had too much going on. So I think I like bumped him over to my key KT another day, and then maybe I did him like his 3rd day. It's so hard to remember. But I mostly focused on Dan and Evan.
Okay.
Dan was there every single day. Evan, I think, had like 10. It was only an 18-day shoot, and I think Evan was there like 10 days.
Wow. Okay. And so what goes into establishing a look, or how do you decide what the character Weird Al is going to look like?
So for Dan, like I knew Dan had grown out a beard and that we could shave down into a mustache so that we didn't have to deal with like a fake mustache the whole shoot. Wearing fake mustaches is very annoying for the actor. It's itchy, it's distracting, and it's also a pain in the butt for me to constantly like yell at them to be like, stop touching your fake mustache, and having to like re-glue it and take it off for lunch and put it back on. So I was very appreciative of the fact that he could grow such a great mustache. And then we were trying to figure out what to do about his eyebrows, because if you look at photos of Al, especially from that time period, he had very like thin eyebrows, and Dan has very full, gorgeous, bushy brows. And I'm like, okay, well, if you take his eyebrows down, he'll look more like Al, but everybody knows we're not, this isn't Al's real life story, like everyone knows they're watching Dan Radcliffe. So I'm not bothered by the fact that he still looks like Dan. Also, Dan had press to do after we wrapped shooting for another project, and I wasn't going to let him go on camera to do press with shaved down eyebrows. Like, it's just too mean. So I did use a razor to take out the bottom of his brows a little bit and then right in between his eyebrows, but it wasn't much. It wasn't drastic. It was just like very slight shaping. And then I would use like a brow gel to like kind of comb them to the side to try and give them the appearance of being slightly thinner.
Wow. That's incredible. It's just, as someone who doesn't work in makeup, I would never even think about matching the eyebrows the same way that I would think, getting the right glasses and the hair and the mustache.
Well, the mustache is funny too, because, everybody's mustache grows in differently, and Dan's mustache actually grows in quite blonde. So I dyed it, I think 2 days before we started shooting. But then because it was such a quick shoot, we never really had the opportunity to like properly dye it again after that. So I was just using alcohol colors every day to like touch up the color and make it more brown. And then if you look at Al's mustache, it almost has like a little triangle piece cut out right above the Cupid's bow of his lip. And Dan's mustache was just straight across. So every day I would go in with like a teeny tiny razor and shave that little triangle. Just little details,
It's incredible.
All that work. I mean, Daniel looked incredible. You could definitely tell he was playing the character of Weird Al. And I understand you also worked with Rachel Wood to get her to look like Madonna. What went into her look?
Oh my God, her looks were so much fun. So I made this huge we call them a deck. It's like an image board that has all different makeup references for Madonna from that time period. And so I sent that over to Evan. That was literally the first thing I did, was make the deck, send it to Evan and be like, which of these looks are you feeling? We can also like combine different elements of different looks and kind of like adjust them. So she picked a few that she liked. And then when I was reading the script and breaking it down, I saw that there was an opportunity for her to have like a total of 4 different looks. So she's got, the first look was when you see her at the nail salon. I think it was like a red lip and a very like taupey colored Marilyn Monroe eye makeup. That's when she's getting her nails done and she sees on the TV about Al. Mm-hmm. And then her main look was the look she showed up at his mansion with. So that one was, I think that was the sunset colored one. It was like yellow. Oh shoot, I'm gonna have to look at my pictures now. I'm like, I can't remember. And then there was a third look, I think that when she gets kidnapped in the diner, which was like purple and orange colored. Yes, the first one was yellow and orange, and then the second one was like a peach and a purple. And then her final look was her villain look, which was like blue mascara, a hot pink lipstick instead of red, because she wears red through the whole movie, except when she turns villain, she's got a hot pink lip and she's got that big scar on her cheek.
Oh, it's so perfect. And now one thing I was wondering about is, with the character of Dr. Demento, it was originally going to be Patton Oswalt, but then last minute they had to swap in Rainn Wilson. How did that affect your department?
Like, shockingly, even though it was such a last minute call, it made it so much easier on my department. Wow. The first day of shooting, it was still supposed to be Patton. And me and my key KT went to Patton's house and had to start fitting him to get a beard, because Patton did not have a beard grown out. It just had like very light stubble, which you can't really work on top of. Like, the actor has to then shave, and then you have like clean skin, and then you glue the beard on. But because we didn't have a ton of prep and a ton of money, I couldn't have a custom made beard made for him. So I had bought 2 pretty high quality beards that I was going to cut apart and Frankenstein back together once I did a pattern of his facial shape. That would have required a lot of work to create the piece. It would have required a lot of maintenance throughout the day, constantly like touching it up, gluing it, hiding any of your edges by hand laying hair over those lace edges. Mm-hmm. But then once they realized that, Patton's broken leg was not going to work out for production, and they recast Rainn at the last minute, Rainn had already had a pretty great beard. All we had to do was shape it into the correct shape, and then KT, my key makeup artist, did his makeup throughout the film. She would color it every day with alcohol colors to give it that gray appearance. Yeah. So it was a lot less work for us.
Now,
oh, wow.
You guys didn't break Patton Oswalt's foot, did you?
Oh my God, no. He was like on tour or something, and he like stepped off a curb wrong. Like, it was just a freak accident.
Oh, wow.
All right, that's what we'll go with. It wasn't your department, just trying to make it a little easier. Now, another character that really has a big transformation is Mary Yankovic. From the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, she has put on a ton of weight. Did that fall to your department?
Yes, that was my department. She is such a lovely woman, and she's such a thin woman that transforming her, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be pretty drastic. And we wanted to really make sure that we weren't like making fun of people who are full figured. It was more about getting the joke of the song at the end, where that song lyric came from.
Right.
So there was a lot of back and forth about like, well, just how heavy do we make her look? And because we didn't have money or time for custom made pieces, I had to experiment with using generic pieces. So the first piece that I had liked, that Eric also agreed was a good piece, was a foam latex fat suit, which is my preferred type of prosthetic makeup to use for a fat suit makeup, because it's so lightweight and it doesn't pull down on the face. But it was just too big and gappy in the chin, because a lot of these pieces are sculpted on male faces. And this one was specifically for a woman's face, but her face is just so tiny that all around the mouth and chin. It was just it wouldn't sit flush on her face. So then I had to rush order a second option. The only other option in her size was a silicone version. And silicone looks more lifelike and more like skin, and it's a lot less work to paint it to make it look realistic, but it's so much heavier than foam latex. So we spent a good amount of time getting the piece on in the morning. Me and my friend Alyssa Morgan came in to assist me on it. But then, like, a couple hours later, I just started panicking because it was starting to, like, buckle around her mouth. It's so hard because that's where an actor is the most expressive, is around the mouth. It doesn't matter, like, how good the glue is. There's condensation there from the mouth. There's so much movement. Mm-hmm. So I started getting some lifting in one of the corners. And so I was just, like, sitting on set with my, like, palette knife and my spackling tools, essentially, trying to, like, fix it in between takes. At one point, it had gotten, like, an air bubble underneath it that I couldn't get out. I was just, like, panicking. So I was like, can we just shoot her mostly from, like, the right side instead of the left side? Because the right side looks a little better.
Wow. Well, it looks seamless in the movie. I mean, it looks incredible.
They helped me out a little bit in post. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pass that off as being a perfect work of mine.
Well, as long as the end product works, I think it's
exactly.
It's great.
Yeah. Now, since we're on the subject of Al's parents, you also did some work on Nick Yankovic as well for his LSD scene.
Yeah, so I had worked with Toby Hess on Reno 911 before, so I'd already known him. He's such a fun character. And in the LSD scene, he had to look like a demon, but we all decided, like, it shouldn't be like a red demon. They were going to use lighting effects and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he should just paint it as his normal skin tone coloring. And the reference they really liked was the vampires from Lost Boys. So I had sent the image over to this company called Out of Kit that does really awesome, like, peel and stick prosthetics. And they had a vampire kit, but I didn't like the forehead of it so much. So they were able to, like, quickly crank me out an altered version of it that looked more like the Lost Boys forehead.
Wow.
Very cool. And I think we need to talk about the scene, the grotto, Dr. Demento's pool party, because that is filled with so many iconic celebrities. I've got to imagine that day was pretty busy for you.
That day was crazy busy, but so much fun. Originally, we were only supposed to shoot the pool party that day, and then the day before, I get a call sheet showing that we've got another scene afterwards with Evan and Dr. Demento. So I actually had to leave. I had to leave the pool party set to go back to the trailer to get Evan ready for that second scene of the day. But the pool party took up the majority of shooting that day. It was chaos, but, like, my favorite kind of chaos. And there were so many character actors that came to play really fun parts. Like, Conan O'Brien was Andy Warhol. Jack Black was Wolfman Jack. Yorma from The Lonely Island was Pee Wee Herman. And it felt like a really fun reunion for me because it was a lot of people I had worked with before. I've worked with Jack multiple times on Drunk History, and he's always the best time. I have worked with Conan before because he produced the Pete Holmes Show, and I've always gone over to Conan's set when Pete's on as a guest, and Conan is just such a lovely human. So it was the best day, honestly. It was so much work, but it was so just fulfilling in so many ways.
What would you say was the most difficult celebrity that you had to emulate?
Not for me personally, but we had background actors that were also playing celebrities. So there was very nice man playing the David Bowie character, but that hair is just so hard to replicate. And, Bowie has those two-toned eyes, and I did get contact lenses for them, but it doesn't read so well because he's in the background.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Jack's beard was a beast, though. Jack's beard was a huge undertaking, but so much fun to do. Like, he came in with this big gray quarantine beard, and so I got to just take that thing from scratch and just make it into exactly what I wanted to make it. So I cut it, I shaped it, I shaved into it, I colored it dark brown. He looked wild. I loved it.
When you're doing stuff like that, I mean, do you have like before and after pictures that you take for your own archives?
I need to be better about that. I always take an after photo because you need to take them for your continuity book.
Yeah.
But I'm so bad at like taking a before photo just for like my own like sense of fun. But Jack did send me like a photo of his beard because I had reached out to him being like, hey, what does your beard currently look like? And he sent me a picture. So at least I do have a good before picture from him.
Okay.
That would be an awesome book, just your before and afters of all the people you've worked on. I would love to see that.
Oh, man, that's a great idea. I mean, yeah, I should do that.
That would be really cool.
And it sounds like that the preference is for at least the male actors when they come in with beards is to come in with a real facial hair and then let you sculpt it rather than have you try to find some sort of wig or some sort of fake beard or fake mustache for them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, ideally that is the best scenario for making things look real and making people feel comfortable. Sometimes that's not a reality because you've got actors who their facial hair doesn't grow in so well, or they're shooting something else that they have to be clean shaven for. There's so many different factors. But yeah, ideally, it's way easier for me to just take somebody's existing facial hair and alter it rather than just make a whole fake piece for them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
I guess sort of the opposite would have been for the Amish Paradise performance. We interviewed Eric Appel, and he was telling us how that performance where Al does not have a mustache fell right in the middle of the schedule, so you weren't able to shave his mustache for that, and you had to make a prosthetic for it. I would love to hear that story from your perspective.
Oh my God. So that was probably like my most anxious trick that I had to pull off the whole film. I felt like so much was like riding on that. But then when you watch the movie, it literally happens within 1 second. And if you blink your eyes, you miss it. But the way they shot it was and edited it was just so seamless. It looked so good. So I really ended up, it really ended up being my proudest moment of the work I was able to pull off. So Dan went and got life casted on day one with his mustache so that we knew what kind of form that the cover was going to have to fit over. So you glue the mustache down as like close to the skin as you can get it, life cast the actor, and then you sculpt with clay what the cover's going to look like, and then they make a negative and then a positive of that piece. So there was like a little bit of drama with that piece though, because we're on such a short timeline from when he got in to when we were shooting that bit that they got me the pieces only like a few days prior to shooting. And then when I opened the box, they just were encapsulated in too much baldies, which is essentially when you have to encapsulate a silicone piece in this product called baldies so that you can melt it into the skin, essentially. It's really nerdy and boring to talk about. But when I got the pieces, they were so encapsulated that they didn't even feel like they were made of silicone anymore. They didn't feel lifelike at all. I was like, is this like a Bondo transfer? Because I asked for silicone. They're like, no, that's silicone. I'm like, it feels like a Bondo transfer. It's really firm. So they're like, okay, we'll like rush you some new pieces. So then they rushed me some new pieces. And then when I opened the box, the baldies was so thin that there were like holes in all the edges. God. And I'm like, how am I going to blend this into his skin? Like, I was so panicked about it. And then I was told on the morning of shooting that they wanted him to remove it in the scene, which I was not made aware of ahead of time. So then I was like, oh my God, what? Like, you want him? It's glued to his face. His mustache is glued down underneath the prosthetic. Like, what do you mean? So we came up with this really great way of cheating it where he's on stage, he sings his song, he's got the prosthetic on and his fake beard, and then he's walking off stage and you see him rip it off in real time. So what we did was we shot all the scenes of him singing, but we only shot them in like wide coverage because we were going to go back on Dan's last day and have him shave the mustache off so we could shoot all the tight coverage so we could cut back and forth.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, it's just not seamless enough for us to shoot close coverage. So we shot all the wide coverage. Then we shot him walking off the stage, ripping it off. So what I did while they were setting up, while the camera department was setting up for that scene, is I took him back to the trailer. I took off the mustache cover. I got all the glue out of his mustache. I recolored his mustache back to brown. And then I took all those extra pieces that I had from that first batch that were too firm, had too much baldies on them, and I painted them all and just used double-sided tape on the back of it and just tacked it onto Dan's skin so Dan could literally just pull it right off and have his perfect mustache underneath it. It was crazy.
Oh, it works so well in the movie, and it's such a funny part when he rips the skin off.
I love it. It's just, they did such a good job with editing that. And I'm like, anytime I'm watching it with somebody, I'm like, you got to pay attention to this part. Don't look away, even for a second. Don't lose your phone.
Oh, I love it.
What's funny is I was texting with my dad like a week or so ago. And I was like, did you even watch the Weird Al movie? And he goes, I watched parts of it.
What?
And I was like, your daughter puts like her blood, sweat, and tears into something she's so proud of, and you watched parts of it. He goes, well, that's not really my style of movie. Like, my dad likes mafia movies. So I was just like, can you just watch the whole thing? Like, I did a lot of great work in that movie. I don't care that it's not your kind of movie. Just spend an hour and a half of your life watching something your daughter worked really hard on.
Do you want me to go knock on his door, Kat? I'm sure I live pretty close.
You probably do.
Oh, that's funny and also disappointing. He's missing out on such a great movie.
Yeah, I think he thinks a lot of the stuff I do is silly. He's a very serious person. I'm a very silly person, so I enjoy all the silly things I work on.
Now, after Weird the Al Yankovic Story, it looks like you've also continued to work with Daniel Radcliffe to some extent.
Yeah, Dan and I just hit it off so well on the movie that he said, I'd really like for you to come work on Miracle Workers with me this summer. And so he put me in touch with the producers and got me an interview, and the producers agreed that I was a good fit for the project. And so I ended up shooting that with him all last summer.
Oh, awesome.
So we only maybe had I would say we only had maybe like a 6-week break between Weird and that. Yeah, it was like a month and a half between the two projects.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
He's the loveliest. It's so funny. Everybody kept saying before, I'd never seen a Harry Potter in my life. I'd actually never seen anything Dan had been in.
Wow.
And so many people were like, oh my God, he's the best. You're going to love him. And usually when people hype people up like that, I'm like, yeah, they were okay. He does not disappoint. He truly does not disappoint. He is the loveliest person. He's so much fun. I've never, ever in my life worked with an actor who would come into the trailer and go, hey, my assistant's going to get coffees. Do you guys want to put in an order? And this was like regularly, like weekly, would buy us all coffees. That never happens.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Wow. Yeah.
What a good dude.
He truly is.
Well, I don't know how you made it through life without seeing a Harry Potter movie, but now I've got to ask you, were you a fan of Weird Al before you started working with him on the movie?
Yeah, when I was a kid, it's funny, I'm not that familiar with Al's newer stuff, but in the early 90s, I loved it. All his Michael Jackson covers I thought were so much fun. And then I had worked with Al on some Drunk History stuff and Reno 911 and just knew what a nice person he was. So I was very much looking forward to collaborating with him more.
Now, Al famously played Adolf Hitler on Drunk History. Were you part of that makeup?
I think that one was before my time. So I was the key makeup artist on the pilot, and there was a different department head. And then that department head did the first, I think, 3 seasons. And then the 3rd season, I was her key again. Because I was just off working on other projects during those first 2 seasons. And then I took over as a department head, I think, in season 4. So I think she must have done the Adolf Hitler one.
Do you recall what you did with Al for that or for Reno?
For Drunk History, it's hard. It's so hard to remember because we literally shoot a different story every single day, and I've done so many seasons of it now that I've like blacked out, and I'm like, I don't even remember what we've shot. But I do remember doing the Frankenstein one with Evan Rachel Wood because it's probably my favorite Drunk History episode ever. But on Reno 911, oh my God, his character is so fun. He's supposed to be Ted Nugent.
Yes.
And it's so wild to see his curly hair flat ironed and straight. And then I put these big mutton chops on him and like this chin stripe goatee thing.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was so funny to see him be... be that character.
It's so far from who he is as a person.
Right.
It's hilarious.
It's almost further from him than Adolf Hitler was. I mean,
I think Ted Nugent and Adolf Hitler are probably more similar than any of them are with Al.
Oh, it's so cool. And I mean, we have to ask you about working on Better Call Saul. I mean, people who listen to the podcast know that's one of our favorite shows, Dave and I.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys love the show. It's a great show.
And by one of, it might be my number one favorite show of all time.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I love Bob Odenkirk, and I love Mr. Show, and I love Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul is just incredible. I mean, everything about it.
I need to go back and try watching it again because... So I only worked on the first 2 seasons of it. And I stopped watching past where I worked on it.
Oh, yeah, you need to.
It's really hard for me to watch things that I work on because I'm never, like when I watch things, I typically get very sucked into the story. Like when I was a kid being glued to the TV, my parents would come in the room and say my name and I wouldn't even hear them because I was so like just entranced and in the story. And I typically am still like that, but except for when I watch things I've worked on, all I can think about is like, oh God, it was so hot that day, or oh, this person was such an asshole on this day, and it really takes you out of the story.
Right.
And then I can't even gauge whether the show is good or not, or even if I work on something that I have like the best time on, then I'm like, oh, that was such a fun shoot, so the show has to be good, right? But then I'm like, but is it good or did I just have a good time? Like, I can't tell if things are good or bad after I've worked on them because I'm just too close to it. But I felt very lucky when I got that job. Like, I really had felt like I got my dream job. I was a huge, huge Breaking Bad fan. Like, it, to this day, is like still, even though I'd say like Game of Thrones is probably my favorite show, I hated the way the last 2 seasons went. And Breaking Bad was just consistently perfect throughout, and it ended exactly the way it should have. Yeah. I think Vince Gilligan is just such a massive genius, and I just loved working with him. He was just so not Hollywood. Doesn't matter how many awards the man has. He's just like a sweet Virginia boy. I can't say enough good things about him. My producers over there were amazing. I had a lot of female producers. Melissa Bernstein was just such a huge inspiration to me to start producing because I'm now kind of moving away from makeup and into producing. And
oh, cool.
Melissa was such a big inspiration for me to make that leap. I loved working with Bob. Like, I had worked with Bob prior to Better Call Saul. Bob was the one who got me my interview for that job. And he's just the best. Like, I would be like, thank you so much for, like, getting me that job. He's like, I didn't get you that job. You got you that job. I just got you the interview. Like, he would not take credit for it. He was always very complimentary of my work. He was like, I always call him he's my comedy dad. Like my real dad is a very serious person. Bob was my comedy dad. But I love Bob's wife, Naomi. I love their kids. Like, they're just the loveliest family. And Bob can be very he just says it how it is. Like, he just has no filter. And I really, being a New Yorker, appreciate that. I think for some people that's like jarring. But I just got him. I just get him. I think he's a genius, like through and through, a genius. Phenomenal actor, phenomenal writer, so funny. And all the actors on that show were awesome. I had the best time working with Michael McKean, who was also in the Weird Al movie. It was such a nice reunion to see him at the snake pit scene.
Yeah, Dave and I got to be in a scene with him.
Oh, that's right. You guys came out for the snake pit.
Yeah. Oh, it was so
God.
cool.
That was such a crazy day, too. I had so much fun getting the band guys ready. Jonah Ray, I love Jonah.
Yeah.
And it was just so nice to see Michael again. I also really love working with Jonathan Banks. He's so nice. Ray Seahorn. Like, everyone on that show was so great. It was the hardest decision for me to make to leave the show, but I just was really unhappy working in Albuquerque. It just wasn't for me. And I didn't want to spend, 5-6 months of my year there for the next 4 more years.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah. That's so cool though that you worked on that and you got to, I assume you had something to do with creating the looks for those characters, at least their earlier versions.
Yeah, I mean, that show was definitely like the highest budget thing I've ever worked on, so there were multiple camera tests for that, which I was so grateful for. It was the first show I had ever shot in 4K on, so even the HD makeups were showing up on camera, so I had to like come up with a bunch of different techniques to make the makeup look seamless.
Oh, wow.
Bob's look, I remember we did a makeup test here in LA before we even went out to Albuquerque. This is like very, very early on. His Gene look, when he's Gene and he's working at the Cinnabon.
Yep.
So we had experimented with doing like all these bald cap pieces with like hair pieces combed over, trying to figure out what he was going to look like, mustaches, and then eventually we landed on just using his own hair. I didn't do the hair, but me and the hair department head were both doing these tests together at the same time. And when you're doing like the bald cap stuff plus the hair, it's very much a marriage in those two departments. But they decided like, let's just use his real hair and just put so much like grease and oil in it that it just makes it look piecey and thinner than it really is.
Yeah.
And then I had a mustache made for him. And then he had, he's supposed to look younger on Better Call Saul than he did in Breaking Bad, but obviously he's older than he was when he shot that.
Right.
So It was just making his skin as like even and smooth as I could. And he was great. He was a trooper. He sat so well for makeups. And I know Bob does not love sitting for makeups, especially facial hair. But he was so great on the show because he knew what it really required to make it look the way that show deserved to look.
And it came out so great. And I really am excited for you to watch more of it because as a Breaking Bad fan, I think it was the only real next step that they could have taken, and they just did it flawlessly.
Yeah, I need to go back and revisit. I also still haven't watched the Breaking Bad Aaron Paul movie, El Camino. I need to watch that.
Yeah, that one's good too.
Oh, yeah.
Vince Gilligan really just knows his stuff.
He's amazing. I would love to work with him again. Just not in Albuquerque.
So this caught me by surprise, and I hadn't really thought about it, but you worked with the military. You've done some live simulated combat training makeup for them. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So my friend who actually helped me with the fat suit makeup on the Weird Al movie, my friend Alyssa Morgan, she was the department head for this company that would do these National Guard live war trainings. She was contracted by a company called ACS. I think it was like Allied Shipping Containers. And essentially we would go out to these military bases and build fake villages out of shipping containers. And each village had its own director, which it was all like they hired all these film people to work with the military. And each director of that village would communicate with the commanding officers for the troop of people that they were coming in to train and talk about like what was going to happen in the iteration. So like, for example, on one of them, it was just supposed to be like a wedding procession was happening through the town. People were marching through the town and they just wanted to see the way the soldiers would react. And because they were very green, they came in and they killed all the people in the wedding because they didn't know what they were doing. So then we'd have to be like, okay, no, that's not how you do things. This is how we're gonna redo this iteration. This is just a wedding. Nothing else is happening here. It was a hard job for me to decide whether I wanted to take or not because I am very much anti-war. But then I realized if I could help not only save the lives of the people in Afghanistan and Iraq, the civilians, by helping train these soldiers, then that was something that I was willing to do.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fascinating, putting the soldiers in real life situations and then trying to make it look as realistic as possible. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best compliments to my work on one of those jobs was I had a soldier literally throw up after seeing one of the wound makeups we had done.
Wow.
Because it looked so real to him. So you're also preparing them psychologically. And it's funny, my boss now at the production company I work for, he used to be in the Army and he did those kinds of trainings as well. And he was like, I love that you did those. Like, they were so helpful for us.
Wow.
So it made me feel good. Like made a positive impact.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. Well, Kat, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about your work with Al and on Weird the Al Yankovic Story. We highly recommend people check out your Instagram at Kat Bardot. You post some really cool stuff. There's a lot of great stuff from your time on Weird the Al Yankovic Story and the other awesome things you work on. And I hope maybe sometime you can come back and you, me, and your dad can watch Weird the Al Yankovic Story together. And we'll get Dave up here and we'll just have a great time.
Yeah, we'll just tie my dad up and force him to watch it. Hold his eyes open with those things from Clockwork Orange.
Awesome. Well, Kat, thank you so much. This was really so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
A special thanks to Kat Bardot for the fantastic interview. We cannot wait to see what she works on next. But in the meantime, be sure to follow her on Instagram at Kat Bardot. That's KatBardot.
Whoa, you know what that sound means? We've got a call on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Okay, intern Frank, let's hear that very timely call.
Hey, this is Claire. I'm putting together my wedding dancing playlist for this weekend. I've already gotten Ethan's picks, but I want to hear from Dave. Dave, when you want to boogie on the dance floor, what Weird Al songs are you putting on? Songs that maybe even people who aren't Weird Al fans would still get down to. I'd love to hear. Thank you.
Claire, thank you for the call. And from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, congrats on your wedding!
Wow, so Claire wants my ideas for Weird Al songs on her wedding playlist. Oh, that is a lot of pressure.
I mean, this call came in like a week and a half ago, Dave, so technically she already had her wedding.
Oh, phew, the pressure is off. All right, well, here are my recommendations of what she should have done on her playlist. Since you've been gone, you don't love me anymore, I'm so sick of you.
Okay, Dave, we get it.
Well, one thing that is good enough for now is our friends over at Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also current.
All right, it's official, and you heard it here first. Discover Darwin's promotional wooden nickels are now accepted as currency in Darwin, Minnesota.
Oh, no way! You know, we literally have dozens upon dozens upon dozens of those. We are so rich.
We sure are, Dave.
Oh, how much are they worth?
Well, each baker's dozen of Discover Darwin wooden nickels is the equivalent of 3 Darwin dollaroos.
Ooh, this is sounding good. Okay, so what is the exchange rate on a Darwin dollaroo?
Well, it does depend on the day of the week and the position of the sun compared to that of Jupiter, but give or take about 15 twine ball bullions.
A twine ball bullion?
Yeah, it's some cryptocurrency, I think. It's pretty volatile, but I swear it's a sound investment.
Oh, you convinced me. Sign me up.
Oh, also, just to be clear, these are only accepted at Troubles No. 2 and the Darwin, United States Post Office.
Okay, well, that's a good start.
And only on leap years.
And it's 2024. That's a leap year.
Oh, but not this leap year. They closed that loophole.
Oh.
And never when it's between 62 and 43 degrees in Chilliwack.
Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Yes.
Curse you, Dave and Ethan!
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next loony expedition. Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to visit www.discoverdarwin.biz.
Dave and Ethan's 2000 Inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors Burrito, Wizard Burger, our very own Jackson Scoggins, and Discover Darwin, home of the Darwin Dollaroo. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our very own close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Dana B., UH Jeff, Blair, Kenneth, Ajax, Javier, Scotto, Matt, Kev, Casey, Allison, Adriana, Gus and Alicia, Zach, Ron, Zeb, and also thanks to Chris and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our supremely sufficient Weird Al podcast as lauded in the commentary track on the brand new Weird the Al Yankovic Story Steelbook, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with their otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence.
Once you join, you'll be the very first to hear our bonus episodes the instant that they drop. And don't forget to check out our official merchandise shop over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our fine podcast.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community at group.2000inch.com and visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rum to Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, X, Threads, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you do not miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, it will convert all your Darwin Dollaroos to Twine Ball Bullion. Plus, we love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347-SPATULA, as seen in the Illustrated Al. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call or give it a text, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
Thank you once again to our guest, Kat Bardot, for joining us this episode. We'd also like to thank the newly wedded Claire Walsh and Laszlo the Chug. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song, and thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you, as always, for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until next time, remember to gill and chill, take some wooden nickels, keep listening to Weird Al, and stay cheesy. So get this, after really extensive research, not only is 222-inch 3 of the same digits repeated, it's also a palindrome.
Wow!
Oh, and wow is also a palindrome.
Yo, Banana Boy!
I thought we agreed we'd stop calling intern Frank Banana Boy.
Evade me, Dave.
Okay, I see what you're doing.
Don't nod.
Can we keep this podcast related?
Never a foot too far, even.
Right.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 222-inch.
Too hot to hoot.
Maybe I shouldn't be saying that.